Welcome to the Valuu Makers Podcast, hosted by Ryan Purvis, supported by Heather Bicknell, as we meet with people that make value happen and hear their stories. Enjoy.
Hey, Brad, welcome to the Valuu Makers Podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Thanks for having me on, Ryan. My name's Brad Jones, and I am the founder of That Round, which is the only business in the UK that is a comparison site, aggregator and marketplace for fundraising services. What we do as a business is aggregate all of the different options for founders looking to raise capital. There's lots of online platforms, angel networks, investor syndicates, fundraising services. It's a very complex ecosystem. We put all of that into one place, make it efficient and transparent.
What pushed you down this route?
Good question. We could probably do the full hour talking about this, to be honest. My background is that there's 3 or 4 paths that sent me down this route. A lot of my friends and family that see me working on this business now have said to me, everything in my life and career has led me to this one route. This is the business that I was made for, essentially. I went to university, studied maths at Imperial College in London. I got myself interested in trading and investment markets. That led me down a route of becoming president of the Finance Society. And one thing led to creating a piece of software that we used within the Finance Society to simulate trading and investment. That ended up turning into a business. My lifelong friend, groomsman at my wedding and then business partner, turned that bit of software into a company. At the age of 19 or 20, we started selling this technology to banks and business schools. What was an idea started off with a bit of traction. 5 or 6 years later, ended up with us selling this software to banks and business schools across the world. We had customers like Bank of America, Citigroup, HSBC, business schools in Australia, London, New York, buying this tech. And I guess that's where my story starts, because it was very much a bootstrapped journey. So we're going to get into the topic of fundraising for startups. But this journey for me was bootstrapped. We never raised a penny. We didn't even put a single penny of our own capital into it. It was purely time spent. I'm not the developer. My business partner wrote the code. I kind of brought the idea. We took it from there. Built this business, grew it, and then 5, 6 years later, we were lucky enough to sell it to a competitor working in the financial training space that wanted a cool bit of tech to bolt onto the stuff they were doing. Interesting journey for me. Built a piece of software, sold it to banks and business schools globally. It's important to my story because never got involved in needing to raise capital. Never involved in this investment world. So then 2016, we sold that business. My business partner and I at the time, for about 3 or 4 weekends in a row, locked ourselves in his apartment, drank a lot of coffee, ordered a lot of takeaway, had a little whiteboard in there, like I see you've got behind you, just went on these brainstorming sessions. What we're going to do next, the various crazy ideas. I think one of them even was a cup that doesn't fall over so you don't spill your drink. Awesome. We were really scratching the barrel in terms of what's the next big idea. I guess we were 25-year-old.
Which is surprising, because most people who just sold their business, made some money, would have gone on a party for a period of time.
Yeah, not mindset at all. My business partner is like a super rigorous German guy that immediately, right, what do we do next? I'm sure we went out and celebrated and popped a few bottles of champagne, but you soon move on to the next thing, don't you? So we spent a lot of time thinking about what is the next thing. After these 3 or 4 weekends back to back, we kind of just sat there and said, you know what? There isn't an idea. Let's not force an idea if there isn't one. But what we'll do is we'll invest in other people's ideas. And so that was the beginning of my second leg to my story, which was setting up an investment syndicate called Sowing Capital. So myself and my ex-business partner set it up and became the lead investors of that syndicate. It was pretty informal. We invited 12 or 13 friends and people that we knew in the finance industry and university, and just started looking at startups. We kind of reached out there, create a website, and get in front of founders that were raising capital.
Yep.
Then went on 4 or 5 year period of, now I've never actually counted this, but I'm pretty sure it's over 500 founders sat down with. We were meeting 2 or 3 founders a week. Back in those days, it was physical meetings for coffee in London, rather than these days, Zoom and Google Meets. This second leg to my story is important because we saw this side of the startup fundraising landscape, which is the kind of angel investing side.
Yeah.
We sat on that side of the table, and between 2016 and 2020, we invested in 15 companies. One thing I will say is it seemed super easy for me because I was one of the investors. These startups would find us somewhere or another, and we'd meet them, we'd talk about it, say no to the vast majority of them, and some of them we'd be interested in. It didn't seem like there was a problem there to fix. The third leg of the journey is where things turn onto the other side of the table. One of these companies that was pitching for investment in early 2020 was a friend of a friend, and it's slightly different to the rest of them. Most of them come to you with a pitch deck and a pretty solid business plan. Sometimes they've got some early traction and a team in place. This guy was a friend of a friend, and there was not even a company set up, never mind a pitch deck. He'd created a liquid, which was a non-alcoholic spirit. These bottles on the shelf behind me.
Can I ask you about this?
So at the time, that was just a liquid he created in a bar setting in ice cream tubs. It was just an idea more than anything else.
And did he get the idea from watching Star Trek and synthetic alcohol?
No, not. No. Although I'm pretty sure he will be a Star Trek fan. He's a super bright and skilled chap. His name's Carl Anthony Brown in the bartending industry. He spent his entire life working behind bars, writing cocktail menus and stuff like this. Came to me with this liquid. Instead of just investing, I said to him, hey, I saw an opportunity. I fell in love with the liquid and the idea. I still am absolutely in love with it. Also saw an opportunity to get involved in a business from a super early stage, founding it rather than just investing as a passive investor.
Sure.
So I took the leap of faith and said, you know what, I'll co-found this company with you. And I've spent the last 4 or 5 years investing in startups. I'll raise the capital for you. I know what I'm doing. This is absolutely my bread and butter. Over the period of 2020 to 2024, I raised about £3 million for CrossIt, which is the name of the drinks business. The first couple of rounds, or the first $500,000 of capital into the business, it was relatively easy for me because, of course, I've got my own investment syndicate and I come from this background in finance. On paper, it's the perfect CV for someone to raise capital, isn't it, for a company? And it was fine. But then there comes this issue where a startup company has got a bit of initial funding from family and friends, yet to reach its targets and criteria that the VCs need. And where do you go next? This is the huge pain point I hit with CrossIt, which was, how do we go and find these investors? Where are they? I spent hundreds of hours on Google, LinkedIn, trying to figure out where do we find investors? Where are these different pockets of investors? That's essentially the light bulb moment that led to that rant. There needs to be a better solution.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I'm in a lot of groups and it's the most common question, where do you find the angels? There are places, you can Google, you can find a whole bunch of syndicates. You mentioned Dan and Ship VC, which is not a bad place to go, but it's still a bit difficult to navigate. You go to Crunchbase, you can find serious angels, big names and all the rest of it. But there's a lot of people that I don't even think realize they are angels when they put money into a business. How do you find those people? How do you get in front of them? This is definitely a problem that's needed to be solved for a while. I'm very curious to know how you think you're solving it. It's interesting. It's something that has solved this problem. There's a database in the end, the black book. So tell us what you're solving. Sorry, go.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I totally agree with you. And we've gone about it a different way because you're absolutely right. There are lots of great services out there that all do different things. Some of them do similar things. But importantly, they all capture different types of investors and different groups of investors.
Yeah.
Some of them have an overlap, absolutely, but the vast majority won't have an overlap, especially when it comes to angels. Because individual angels, I'm an angel. I don't sign up to 10, 15 different angel networks and sites because my inbox would just be spammed all day long. Typically, angels like to have one source of deal flow. It could be an angel network in Edinburgh where 25 men and women meet twice a month to look at businesses. Or it could be a global angel network where people are more electronic format. with the VCs as well. VCs have various partners that pass deal flow to them. When I set about solving this problem, I didn't think I'm just going to rewrite the rules. I'm going to create a better version, and I'm going to try and recruit all of their investors. I think that's an impossible task, and that's not the way to solve the problem. The way we're trying to solve it is the same way that Rightmove solved the estate agent and housing problem in the UK, which is instead of trying to replace the estate agents, we pull all of the estate agents onto one central platform.
Yeah.
We mentioned ShipShape because they were on your show a while back, and I listened to that and I thought it was a great podcast. I think they're solving a great problem with their AI approach in finding VCs that are interested in certain sectors.
Yeah.
There are other platforms that do things with VCs. There are platforms that cover angel investors. And there are also syndicates and angel networks that are less online and more physical. What we're trying to do is bring all of that into one central place, allowing founders to compare and contrast. Some of these platforms you pay for, some you don't, and also reviews. We like to think of ourselves as one step before all of these different partners in the system.
It's funny you bring in reviews, because Dan's got a podcast now where they do all the horror stories of investing. Often we hear about syndicates of funds are not kosher in how they play the game. Reviews are the part that's been missing. For a long time, I'm a founder. I've struggled through 2 startups. And when you're trying to raise money, you can get term sheets that are diabolical. There's not much you can do. If you need the money to pay the payroll, you may sign up to some of these things. But if you could warn somebody else about X fund or Y syndicate, so that they go in with their eyes open and say, I'm not going to touch because they're dodgy, you save some time. Trying to get investment is actually worse than selling to clients in a lot of ways. Because at least if you sell to a client, they've got a problem you can solve. When you're selling to an investor, they're spreading their bets. Probably a 2 in 10 chance of that investment paying off. So they're looking to find the spread that matches their risk profile. Unless you've got a different view on that, but that's how I've always seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very much trying to raise capital, very much like a selling and marketing exercise. And there's a conversion rate, which is very low, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, a lot of these potential prospects will put you through their questions, which will lead you down a route of refining your pitch deck, your model to match them. Then you speak to another one and they're like, oh, I don't like that information. I want this information. And you go through this ringer of changing all your stuff all the time to match all these things. And I think having some level of commonality, if you look at what a pitch deck is nowadays, I mean, if you look at criteria, that sets out pretty much a good backbone for what a pitch deck should have generally. But I think that loop of a review cycle will maybe keep things a little bit more honest for both parties.
Absolutely. Look, I think one of the key, again, this was part of the kind of light bulb moment and problem solving exercise that I went through in raising capital for CrossIP. We interacted with many of these different fundraising services. We pitched at lots of angel networks. We joined various platforms. We paid fundraising services to help us raise capital. And some were really good. Some were not so good. I posted this on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago because I want to be vocal about the stuff. We got scammed, like full on scammed.
About that?
Absolutely. I won't name names for the same reason that you're not going to, but we were approached by an introducer who we actually had an investor of the business who recommended this guy, but didn't realize that he was also getting scammed at the same time, which was a slightly tricky part of the story. But basically, this introducer claimed to be able to put our business in front of family offices in the Middle East. So the drinks brand, actually, most of our sales are in the Middle East, in Dubai and Saudi Arabia. And so I suppose he put 2 and 2 together, claimed that he had lived out there previously and essentially was very close to a lot of high net worth individuals or ultra high net worth individuals he mentioned, threw a lot of names around. We did our research as much as we could. It's very difficult to verify those relationships when they're giving names of wealthy and almost celebrity level people. What are you going to do? Pick the phone up and call the celeb that they're talking about? We kind of went with our gut. The guy talked a really good game and we paid him an upfront fee to basically get going with us on this process. Sounded great for a couple of months. We'd get updates, went to this meeting, this person's interested. And then over time, started to realize, hang on, this guy's stringing us along a little bit. And when we compared the notes of all the feedback, it was like, why have you not actually introduced us to anyone yet? Why are you doing all of these calls? There's a meeting and then another meeting, and then they're interested, and then can you send a deck? Long story short, we were just being strung along. In the end, I found a way to get to one of these ultra high net worth individuals that basically ran a family office that owns a chain of hotels in the Middle East. Got on the phone with the guy, and they said they'd never heard of him. Perhaps it's not a trap that we would have fallen into if we didn't have someone within our shareholder base that recommended this guy. Because I think that's the thing, isn't it, that gets you over the line. It's the testimonial, it's the recommendation. We maybe wouldn't have gone for it, but unfortunately, we fell into that trap. And I guess that round, it's one of the reasons for that round to be there is like, if there is an introducer, a fundraising service that is good at what they do, they should be on that round and they should have a decent rating so that people can see that.
Yeah. And I do think there's a level of being having associated risk. I remember having a few of these guys reach out to me when the generative AI stuff was first coming out, promising they could do the whole outreach with their engine, reaching out to these lists of angels and sending them personalized emails, but you had to pay them like $3,000 a month as a retainer. And I kept saying, but why would I pay you for this? You should be risk-based, because if your thing is so wonderful, you could take a 5% commission, which is industry standard. Heck, we even pay 8%, but I'm not paying you a retainer because you have no risk then. So if it fails after 90 days, you've made $9,000 and I've made nothing. And I think that's where you can almost test somebody and say, if they're prepared to take some risk on this, if not all the risk, that means they know what they're doing and they've actually got the book they talk about.
Absolutely. And that's a really important thing you point out. So if you look at the partners listed on that round, there's a good chunk of them that are zero upfront fee and just success fee based. That said, we do have partners that charge upfront fees or some form of retainer, but that's the point of that round, because some of these partners are not taking that risk. Like the company that we're trying to pitch to you, they're not taking that risk because there is no centralized, transparent review-based system out there. So 100%. If they pitch that same thing to you and 10 other businesses and they all failed and they get 1-star reviews from everyone, it's over for them from that point on, right? I mean, I'm talking about the vision here, right? One thing to point out, we only launched a month ago. So the platform's been a work in progress for almost 2 years now, but we actually launched just a month ago. So the 5-year vision is, this is the central transparent marketplace to come. And companies like that charge an upfront fee, okay, maybe they're worth it if their reviews are good, but if they're not, then they won't survive.
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I remember doing this thing with a bunch of guys trying to build a consulting business. We spent the first 2 meetings trying to figure out all the commercial models. I got frustrated saying, if you find a customer first and find a way they're willing to pay, that's your commercial model. I think it's the same. If you've got a service to sell, if you're dealing with a founder idea, how they or can't pay for it will determine what the interaction will be. And I think for the scale-up space, where the startup is generating revenue and can afford to spend, might make sense to pay. But then you're not going to get the big 5% cut of what you think. You might get, it all depends on each one's risk profile. The amount of misinformation and con people around, you've got to really be savvy. I think the most important piece of what you're telling me is that there's a review system. There's a product or website called hellopeter.com, which is a South African-centric thing. Whenever you had an issue in South Africa with a supplier, be it a bank, insurance company, or whatever, you named and shamed them on hellopeter.com because that would get their attention before social media became social media. In some respects, this is the same thing. People ask on these WhatsApp groups I'm in, has anyone dealt with X, any bad experiences? And you'll get like 5 or 10 or 20 people saying, whoa, ignore, go away, don't touch them. And that's what you're basically going to be doing on a massive scale. It's protecting.
And you'd be surprised because in this ecosystem of fundraising for pre-seed, seed, even getting close to Series A rounds, the ecosystem is so vast, but it's so opaque. Most of the fundraising services out there don't have public reviews. You type their name into Google and review, you won't find anything about them. You might find a few testimonials on their website. It's always tricky to tell with testimonials on somebody's website that are not reviewed. We make sure that every review that comes through our platform is either an engagement that happens in the platform, so we know it's happened, or they provide evidence of that engagement, a contract or a receipt for payment. And it's not just the reviews that are difficult to find. In a lot of these cases, it's actually the partner, whether it's an angel network, a syndicate of investors, or a fundraising service. Sometimes these guys are on page 100 of Google. I guess that's a big part of the problem we're solving as well. Founders, especially first-time founders raising for the first time, never find some of these services because they don't have any SEO. Most of them don't really need any SEO because they get their deal flow from different places. So they're just kind of sitting there. I've actually found a group of angels based up near Lincoln, where I'm from, Lincolnshire in the East Midlands, the other day. And I've been playing around in this space now for nearly 10 years and I never knew they existed. So it's trying to bring all of that into one place and make the journey easier.
What's the commercial model with your platform?
Yeah, we charge a monthly subscription fee for startups, £79 per month, which is priced at an affordable level for any business, kind of like an enterprise software level. You pay the same for a LinkedIn premium or even a phone bill these days. On the other side of the marketplace, we charge the partners a referral fee. If a startup engages with a syndicate, an angel network, or a fundraising service, they charge some form of fee, whether a success fee or a retainer. We take a small cut of that, like a traditional marketplace model.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I suppose £100 a month or thereabouts for anybody who's building a business to raise fund, it's not the $5,000 up front or the $3,000 a month or anything like that to be focused on. Okay. And you say you've been around for about a month. What's your vision for this? I mean, how many users do you want? How many startups do you want? What's your North Star?
Yeah, so first month, I think we've had around 80 startups come through the platform. The vision, let's call it the 5-year vision, is that round becomes the right move of fundraising in the UK and to be honest, globally as well.
Yeah.
We want every founder that thinks about raising to think, you don't go to Google and type in, how do I find angels? Or go to LinkedIn trying to search for VCs. You go to that round, type that round into your browser, land there, and figure out which partners you're going to run your round through. Sign up to that round, create an account, and engage with all the different fundraising partners. You can join an online platform, pitch to 5 or 6 different angel networks. From the partner side, if you're not listed on that round, you've got something to hide, is essentially the way I would like to think about it long term.
Yeah.
This transparency element, making sure that all the partners out there operating in this place are super transparent on pricing and also on reviews.
I like it. I think it's be really useful. Did we have an affiliate link or referral link for our listeners or not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my colleague Matt should have sent one across. Do you want me to read it out now?
If you've got it, that'd be great. I'm just trying to look at your... Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
If you want to read it. We can always clean this up.
We've got a discount code, which gives any of your listeners a 25% discount, which is VALUU. They can go to thatround.com and sign up using that discount code. I do have a referral link, but it's a very long one. It's probably not worth me reading it out, but I can stick it in the chat and you can add it to the podcast.
Yeah, perfect. So the link that he sent me, and then you say the keyword was value.
That's it. Yeah. VALUU. Obviously, it's your business.
I've got a few groups. I'm going to pass that around now because I think people will really benefit from that. Anything else you want to share?
I think there was one point you touched upon with your mention of the pricing sensitivity to founders and startups. Ryan, I know you've played around in this space a little bit yourself, and you've obviously interviewed other people in this space. I'm keen to get your view on this, but in my mind, there's a lot of content out there that is misleading for founders and leads them down this journey of, you should do this yourself. You know, it's fundraising. You should not be spending money on this. You should be knocking on people's doors. You have to make 1,000 calls to get 10 investors. There's a lot of that out there, which I personally think is misleading founders. Founders need to think about raising as any other kind of business service, whether it's marketing or sales or dealing with lawyers. Sometimes there's services you need to pay for to get them done. Just keen to hear your view on that.
Yeah, well, I think the problem is, if, especially on something like LinkedIn, you get so many messages per day of people offering the service that it's very hard to tell if someone's credible or not. And in some respects, selling software, selling your product to get investment or your service to get investment versus selling to a customer, either one of those focus areas is going to take you away from the other one, because they're both full-time things. In the same way that you'd have a 7-step cycle to sell something, you'd have a 7-step cycle to get investment. And depending whether you're going VC or angel, there are people that do the honest job and they're there to help you. And we've talked a bit about that. But I do think you want to do a bit of it yourself so you can understand the pain and also know where your strengths and weaknesses are. But some people aren't built that way. Talking to people cold and trying to sell what they do is hard. I think having someone that can help them articulate the message, get the pitch deck together and all that kind of stuff, those are value-added services that make sense. Specifically in this AI world that we live in, you can get a lot of stuff done by yourself. But I think the biggest problem, and I think this is what you are going to solve, is who are the authentic investors you should be talking to, and who of those are going to give you good advice that you can use to get yourself going as a startup, founder, business, scale up even. So that would be my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. I think at the end of the day, the call between investor and founder has to be the founder, right? Or CEO or whoever it is in the business that's running that process. They need to control the information in the pitch deck and the message they're going out with. But how they get to that investor, whether that be the sales pitch, depending on where the founder's skill set lies, but primarily the journey from A to B to C to get a call with that investor is what's wasting a lot of time for founders. I think there's a better way for people to get there.
And I raised money last year for a business. I did the LinkedIn search, angel or investor, and I reached out to them directly. I did about 120 meetings in a month. It was exhausting trying to answer all the questions that were basically the same question asked a different way. It was just a whole lot of stuff. And I think just knowing who the serious players were in our space as well. Not every angel syndicate is the one you want to be talking to.
Right.
And I'm sure you'll get there with categorization and tagging, very much the same as what Dan does with ShipShape. These are your fintech ones. These are your mark-tech ones. These are your prop tech ones. I think that also helps to clarify things a bit for the founder so they can be efficient. It's an efficiency game as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you hit a really important point there, which was that often with the cold outreach process, you're landing in people's inboxes when they're not necessarily even looking to invest, never mind in your business, right? In my mind, the analogy is almost like Facebook or Instagram ads, right? Someone's scrolling and you're trying to hit them with something that might catch their attention. Whereas I think that what that round is trying to solve is we're trying to make it almost like the Amazon kind of, someone's going there with the intent, right? If they're part of an angel syndicate and they're participating in regular meetups, they're clearly active and trying to get you through that journey to get in front of them a bit easier than going around the outside.
I also think there's I don't want to say misinformation, but I almost feel like it's the media way of doing things as well. Get people who are talked about with certain reverence in the angel investing world. And it almost, if you get that person to invest, it'll open the floodgates. But I don't think that's actually true in a lot of ways. That reverence at that point in time, but anyone who's investing may not have the same behaviors in the future because the things. And I think you're taking away the emotional end user. We talk about having evidence-based data to make decisions around optimizing the environment. It's the same sort of thing. You're taking away this fuzziness by saying, oh, actually, this angel is active. They've done 25 deals this year. It's all in fintech. They're definitely one you would want to talk to at least to get good advice, as opposed to Joe, who's done one deal in the last 2 years, but will spend a lot of time asking you questions and not get you anywhere. And that's what the review will tell you. So
100%.
Great. So website, thatround.com.
That's it.
Is that where you want people to go first, or you want them to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's thatround.com. They can find a lot of information about the business there. We've got a super simple explainer video because it's not the easiest concept to understand, right? Because we're kind of this one step before all the other stuff that's out there. But also hit me up on LinkedIn as well.
Fantastic. It's been fantastic chatting with you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Likewise. Appreciate it, Ryan.
Thank you for listening to our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Help us grow our reach. Please also check out our website, www.value.work, and our product that's on there. It's something we worked really hard on. We hope that it benefits you.